120 seconds. 110 seconds. 100 seconds. 90 seconds. 80 seconds. 70 seconds. 60 seconds. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
'Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
professor. Oh, goodness. The only thing better than watching this is actually being in the studio and seeing it up close and being in the room. It was phenomenal. Let's listen to a little bit more. Oh yeah. Love it. Morning talk. I love watching my man play the organ. Okay, let me stop. It's morning talk, my friends. It's morning talk. Time to get our talk on. And as you can see, I'm having way too much fun here. Way too much fun. Wow. It's morning talk with me, your host, J. Stan McCauley, along with the champions of talk. Cleo Duke-Wright is in the house this morning. Good morning, Miss Cleo. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing very, very good. I'm doing better than good.
I survived the week.
You survived another week.
Yes, I did. I said, thank you, Lord. I got up this morning. The first thing I did was put out my prayer. Said, thank you. Just help us through the day. I said, help the whole family, Lord. We need you. And I got up and got dressed, and then it started. Cleo! I said, all right, Lord. Cleo!
Music
Cleo's
to your ears.
Cleo! Do that at my funeral. Everybody ought to get up and just holler, Cleo!
Won't you let me rest in peace?
Cleo! Just call me. That's all right,
That's funny. Yeah. So you had a good week. That's great to
Yeah,
hear.
I had
That's
a good
great to
week.
hear.
It was like it always is. It's tough getting through it, but I had a good week, and I had a telephone call that I was telling you about. This young man that I sold books to had been trying to get me for days, and I see the number, and just as I'm gonna answer that number, I gotta go do something else. I said I'll get back to him, and I haven't gotten back in about 3 days. So finally, yesterday in the morning, I called him, and
Pull your mic.
I called him. He said, "Oh, hi, how are you? I'm John, the one you sold this book to, the Hebrew books, And so I said, "Oh, hi," And he started talking, and we got into things, and then I had to go. So I was on my job. Didn't you know he called me back that evening? I was still on my job. Called me back that evening. And he just talked, and we had a very nice conversation about youth stand, about politics, about the mayoral race, and it was just very nice to hear positive things. It was very nice to hear positive things about you. It was about time.
There are actually some people out there that aren't haters. Yeah. But it's good to hear that. I'm glad to hear some positive feedback from
he was very positive and hopeful in your mayoral campaign, and he wanted to know about the process, and so I told him a little bit about the process and how you were working into trying to get the nomination, and he just thought that was wonderful. And now it's stand time. I said, yeah, stand time. Come on. Come on, let's do this thing.
I like the sound of that.
Let's make a difference. Let's make a difference with someone who is not connected to every little thing in the city, but connected to the people. So I don't talk like this.
And yes.
I was on a roll. I was on a roll. He didn't even want to hang up, but I had to go. But he was enjoying that, and I told him, look, I said, read the Hartford News. There's always something in there, Hartford News, about the campaign, and people write different things in there. I said, I don't read the current. I get my information through word of mouth of what's in the current, but the Hartford News is always interesting to me. So I told him, get the Hartford. He said, where do I get it? Where? I said, it's a free paper.
Free paper.
Go in any of these stores. Most of these stores will have them. Pick up a copy and read it. It will inform you and tell you what people are thinking. I read in there about many in the bill that they were trying to pass.
Minnie Gonzalez.
And I said, wow, And I read about, this one woman had such a good article. And I cut them out. Of course, I left them in my car at the garage. About what it takes to be a good mayor. And what it, and some of the things she said, count money out, count race out. She just eliminated all of these things, and she said integrity is the top of the list. And she just went down and said, these are the things that someone who's caring about the city needs to have. I think it was in the last one, the last two, and I cut that out and I pasted it in my book. I said, I gotta read this every now and then because it's what I think, but a lot of people, but I can't always verbalize it, but she just said it so clearly. All these things we care about that really don't matter. You need someone with integrity who thinks, stands on his own 2 feet, makes his decisions, and not connected to the world. So I said, I got to keep this. And so I pasted it. I pasted it in my book, and of course I left the book there because I didn't think I needed it, but I forgot about that I had that. I wanted to bring that to the show.
Mhm.
And what's Mike's last name? He writes for the paper all the time.
Oh, McGarry.
McGarry.
Yeah,
and
Mike.
I cut out one of his,
Big Mike McGarry.
Yeah, I cut out one of his articles. Also, that's it. I think his thing is, okay, you guys, when are you gonna get serious? I guess when we get closer to the campaign, they'll really talk about something.
Oh yeah, yeah. In
That's
fact, Mike was Mike left the there was a debate up at Elizabeth Street. The WICA, the West End Civic Association, along with the AKAs and an entrepreneurial concern that of young business people. I can't remember the name of the group. The something. I can't remember the name of it. But he was not happy because they didn't ask questions that he felt were relevant. And I was actually at a mini forum. It was only like three. There was only three. I won't say who they were. I was one of them, but there were three candidates. Only three candidates invited to this forum. And one of the guys that was at the forum at the very end, he was upset. He says, all of you guys, he was extremely disappointed in all of us. And he was disgusted. And because he said, you're not talking about the substantive issues. And I said, well, with all due respect, we're talking about what everyone in this room is bringing up. You are asking us questions. We're answering the questions. I don't mean be disrespectful, but if you ask, if you ask the tough questions, you'll get us to divulge. Do we have answers to them? Can we think about them, or whatever the case is? But if you don't ask us, he wanted us to talk about the bishops, Constitution Plaza, how Constitution Plaza was supposed to be the new downtown. So the failure of these things is a very, very important conversation. Taxes, mill rate, all these things. But if the audience doesn't ask those questions, you can steer any opportunity to talk into something that you want to say. But I find it very disrespectful when someone asks you, "Hey, what's for dinner?" and you start going over the breakfast menu.
Yeah, well, I don't think if it was a good moderator, they would let you go on with that.
With answering the wrong,
answering the wrong question.
Right.
A good moderator
Answer
would
the
stop
question.
that immediately.
Yep.
So why couldn't he just ask the question from the floor? Why didn't he just ask one of those questions from the floor?
He should have just asked us the tough question rather than to say what we weren't doing. Ask the question.
And it's obvious, well, maybe it's not obvious, that the people who were asking the questions weren't as deep and involved in these things as he was. Or knowledgeable. Maybe they weren't as knowledgeable as him.
They might have been as knowledgeable, but they were asking questions relative to the things that were important to them, like their businesses, decisions that were going to be made about projects that were already underway. These are important questions to a whole cohort of individuals, particularly the question about how do you feel about current projects? What would you do as it relates to current projects that are already underway? Because there are some people who think that if a project is underway, the new administration doesn't like the project, they stop it. And then, and one of the answers was, well, I'm elected to do certain things, and if the electorate doesn't want that to go forward, then we're gonna analyze it and stop it. I think that's a legitimate question, because if you were a business owner trying to move something forward and you've made plans to that, and the new administration is gonna come in and stop it, I think that's a legitimate concern, because now you're gonna be on the outside looking in, or your plans that you had get.
So you have to make sure your man, whoever he is, gets in, that you're going to work toward that,
right?
That person that's going to deal with your issue,
right?
Is there when you're on a debate, it's like, how would you become a holistic mayor for the city of Hartford? Holistically, I mean, this is a whole city.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen? I mean, where would you even begin? Not in anybody's specific interest, but something that's going to build the majority of Hartford people. Was gonna enrich the majority. Or is there such thing as that? Or is it always his or her concerns? I'm gonna work on his or her concerns, and you're looking at certain concerns, but you're not looking at a whole city. So how do you do that? How does an elected official that is representing everyone help everyone?
It's not,
or enrich everyone, even if they don't think so. Like this man or this project is happening over here. Everybody's not for it, but you could see, the leader could see, this project is going to impact in a positive way a lot of residents in the city of Hartford, even though they may not know it at that time. How do you a leader has to see that, right?
A leader has to see that. Hartford is in such a state that if everyone in Hartford had an idea, it would be fabulous. I mean, it's not like we don't need a whole lot of ideas and a whole lot of help. And so it's been my observation over the last 40 plus years of covering meetings throughout the city that all too often what happens is we'll work on Cleo's idea. And since we're working on Cleo's idea, we don't need any other ideas. But Cleo's idea, let's say you want to help feed hungry people. Mm-hmm. And, you're a phenomenal individual, but you can only cook so much food. You can only manage such a space and so many people. And so at some point, you're going to get burned out if we just lean on you. So we could use about 60 or 70 Cleos. So we'll work on your idea, help you, and work with other folks. And I think what happens is people's projects are put forward at the expense of others instead of in addition to others. And I think that there are enough ideas in the city that if there's some intentionality, you can move these ideas forward. The thing that I think is so one of the reasons why I think it's so doable is that most people that have ideas, they really, really are interested in actually executing them. So the main worker bee is the person who actually comes to you with the idea. It's not like they're putting ideas on your desk and leaving. They want help. So how can you align them with other people who want to do the same thing? They work together, particularly if you can help give them the resources necessary to get the job done. And now you've got people who are anxious to do this. And I've seen this done on a very small scale with about 70 producers. These are people who don't think the same. They don't have the same interests in terms of their messages. The one interest they do have is they want to say something. That's the common thing that everybody had. And that was at the public access station. We had people working on production crews that were pro-life and people who were like mad because you weren't aborting enough children in a week. I mean, we had that kind of tension, but the people would help each other on the shows because they need each other to get their message out. So the one thing they had in common was they have a message that's important to them. And so by empowering everybody to have a voice and having people work together outside of their silos and communicate on a bigger goal of, all right, wouldn't you want to reach his audience with your message? And wouldn't you want to reach her audience with your message? All right, the people that are on your side already believe in what you're doing. So if you take that same thing and roll it out. So if there's a construction project in the Blue Hills, all right, let's say they want to do veterans housing. And then there's another project over on Parkville. They want to rehab a building. And you have limited funds. Well, how can we take these limited funds and maximize them so that we can work on both projects at the same time, or queue projects up, or have this group understand as soon as this project's done, we're going to use the same people that did that project to work on this project. There are creative ways that people can work together and understand that this is for the greater good of the whole, but you have to communicate those things, and you have to be willing to take some hits when things don't go well.
Those are interests. What I'm saying is in a holistic way, because, once somebody has something, they go in different ways and people work together in different ways. But what I'm saying, take the school system.
Mm-hmm.
Take the school system. When I was coming up, there was all of these people, basically Jewish people, who would run the school system and all of that, before they left to Harvard. We had great schools. They wanted their children to be educated correctly. They wanted their children to go on. And those schools did that. But in doing that, all the rest of us got good educations. All the rest of us got the fallout. All the rest of us learned how to do all these things. All the rest of us learned how to read and cope with our society that was around us. All their children didn't go to college. They weren't all, Einstein and all of that, although a lot of people think so. So they, we were trained to do the industries that were around us.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you got out of high school, whether you were the focus or you were not, you got the richness of that education, and you went out and did what you needed to do to sustain your life.
So
some of us succeeded, some of us did not.
Mm-hmm.
But we all were there and had that same chance.
Well, if I understand,
as far as, so I'm saying, can a leader look at a city and, like that same way, we're going to do this thing, and when we do this thing, the people who get it, the people who need help will get help, and will go on, and instead of saying some of the people will go to construction, some of the people will go there, some of them will be leaders and change that whole industry that they're going into, but they have a basic understanding that to where they want to go. Today, you have people going into voting booths who know absolutely nothing except the word Democrat, have no idea who's on the ballot. I was taught in school about candidates, about how to vote, about how to do interviews, about how to get a job. So that's across the board. So if I didn't get it, I didn't get it, but it was offered. It was offered. Everybody doesn't get everything, but it was for everybody, even though maybe this little group of people just wanted it for their children. It just kind of, that's what I'm saying.
I think if I understand,
Am I going off the deep end?
no,
what?
I think I think I understand what you're referring to. Once upon a time, everybody was together, and there was one place where you got everything. So by virtue of the fact that you were there, you were exposed to it.
Right.
Now the time has moved on. People could take their kids out of a particular school and put them in a special school, a more expensive school, a school that may focus on something, and they have access to resources and information that the kids that were left behind don't have. So if you're thinking of what is the best way to reach everybody, then you have to level the playing field in such that everyone has access to the same resources or the same information. And when I say resources, it's not necessarily money. It's the resource that makes things successful. And it doesn't have to come at the expense of someone else. Usually it comes at the expense of. So if there's a disparity, whereas let's say Kingswood Oxford's got a really good educational program, Harvard Public Schools has challenges that Kingswood does not. So how can Harvard Public Schools be as good as Kingswood? Well, there actually is a way. It's not as easy to accomplish as one may state, but there's a model over here of why it works. The research shows, of course, that the number one contributor to child success, the biggest impact on children, is parents. Not a fancy school, not big budget.
Right.
The parent. So if you want kids to have a better education, then you have to fix the broken link in the chain to the outcome of them having a better education. If parents in Hartford read at, the research shows, between 41 and 61% illiterate, that's the illiteracy rate in Hartford. It's upward to 61. The low side is 41%. So people can't read a ATM machine. They can't read an ATM machine. Yeah, when they go into the voting booth, they can't read who's on the ballot. So they vote Democrat or they vote Republican because they know that's the line of the people who they have heard about, because they can't read about them. They can't study about them. And then this trickles down into the family. The time in the past where the old Weaver High School, where there was a predominantly, as you have stated, Jewish population attending the school and people wanting the best for their kids. So those parents in that school demanded the best, and it affected everyone in the school. Mm-hmm. So the curriculum was a very high standard. The teachers were compelled to deliver. And so everyone had access and everyone had exposure. They may not have had access to the same jobs, but they had access to the same resource or the basic information that everyone else had. Today, that's very much different. So if parents aren't driving the change, then the people who are delivering the product will be the ones that are driving it. So I covered Board of Education meetings for many, many years. I've actually been the producer of the coverage, Harvard Board of Education. But before that, I would be in the station monitoring and watching. I would send the crew out and they would cover it, and I'd see it and be exposed to it. Now, I can remember a time in Hartford when parents came to the Board of Education meetings. Now they don't. They don't. They're absent. So if you ran a restaurant and the restaurant came and people were, telling you what they want, you go in the kitchen, you cook it. But if people don't tell you what they want, then you start putting a menu together that you like or that you think they want, as opposed to them telling you what they want. So the system is preparing for us what they think we want or what they think we need. all the jobs they used to train folk for aren't here anymore. The factories aren't here. The insurance companies are downsized. All the technology things that people used to do aren't there. So, and you use the word training.
This is not the first time that that's happened. The Industrial Revolution. That's not the first time that has happened.
Well, I would say that
happened many times.
Right, but
and we have gotten through that. We've trained with. I mean, that's not new.
But the intentionality of the people making the demands has changed. Those making the demands have let go. They've let go. If the people who drive change, which are the voters, the constituents, are disengaged, then you get what we now have.
Why do you think? Cleo, don't go there yet.
What?
Why do you think they're disengaged?
Multitude of reasons. In Hartford, there's a lot of reasons. I don't think it's a universal reason across the board. I could speak in Hartford. Hartford is the fourth poorest, the research, between the fourth and the eighth, depending upon what you look at. Poorest city of its size in the country. So Hartford is in the grips of poverty. It's very well camouflaged. But Hartford's a very poor. The people in Hartford are poor. There's lots of money in Hartford, but the people are poor. So they're in survival mode. People are just trying to make it to the end of the day, the end of the week, and they're living from paycheck to paycheck. And so they're not trying to get engaged in who's the governor and who's the running for this, that, and the third. And they're disengaged. They're poor. And there's no one trying to uplift the people.
And they don't. I may be talking out of my head, so just you can curb me down. They don't have a place. Everybody used to have a place.
Mm-hmm.
We all had a place to go in our neighborhoods. We all had a place to go. There is no place anymore. There is, because I think, this is just my opinion, because I think that after we're still suffering behind the 60s and the 70s, when we had a place and we were poor. Some of us didn't work, but we had that neighborhood. We had that place. We had that. It was stable.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us got out of it. Some of us did not, but it was stable. Look how many wonderful people came out of the poorest, the square. I mean, fantastic.
Had solid families.
Solid. Okay, there was it. But when we thought we had it made, when we were doing all that marching, and we thought we had it made, we didn't understand what we had. So we lost it. Because now we're going downtown. We're going downtown in a different manner. Mm-hmm. Once you went downtown, you got dressed up, you went to do that, and there was racism and all of that. But hey, you going home. They were polite enough, and some people were not polite. But you're going home to your neighborhood, to your stores, to your people, to your doctors. You don't have that anymore. You don't. So where do people belong? There's no place people. Now, I can't say everybody, but a lot of us have lost our foundation because we wanted something that was not real, was not there, and was not real, and was not us. And that's what I think. And how do we get it back? If you can ever get it back, I have no idea.
I don't know if it comes back the way it was. It can come back and be a little bit. There will be, the pendulum swings back and forth. societies come,
Yes.
societies go. Things that people try don't work, and they go back to the ways that they went work, and they overcompensate. So the pendulum swings back and forth. Communities are self-sustaining, self-educating, and self-policing. If you don't have those things, you don't have a community.
Yeah.
I believe that the center of community is the school. Well, if you get rid of the school, the center of the community is disrupted. Another thing that adds to the community structure are mosques, synagogues, churches, a sense that there's some power greater than yourself, all right, that binds everything together. If you get rid of those basic tenets, then self becomes the most important thing, and then my interest becomes the most important thing, and my interests supersede everyone else's interests. So things become very self-centered, self-focused, and self doesn't make a community. Self exploits every community it comes into to take out of it what it can, like a virus. It comes, it destroys the host, and moves on to something else. And so you have all these little viruses in community getting out of it what it can. So instead of the school being a place that you go and you build up the kids, the school is a job that you go and you get paid. If you don't get paid what you think you're worth, you go on strike, because self isn't being nourished. Self isn't being fed. Never mind the kids. Before, there was a time when it didn't matter how much people made. What mattered was what you were giving to the community, what you were giving to your kids, what you were giving to the neighbor's kids. The neighbor's kids were your kids if you didn't have
That's
kids.
right. And
So-
and it didn't matter what your job was,
Right.
so much. But it matters now, and I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so society has changed. It will. Things aren't ever as romantic as the past. For those who experience the past and see that the present is different, it's never going to be the same as it was. For the people who are now, this is their now, and they're adjusting to it. But I think the wisdom of some of the people from the past could help the present correct some of the errors in their ways. The newfangled thing is not always the best thing. What you might envision and hope for doesn't always turn out to be what you thought it would be. So, Hartford is a city that has school choice. I would call it school chaos, because the unintended consequences of this has created chaos in the communities. So the communities are fragmented. People aren't, is the education serving you or not? This is not that deep. If either kids are getting educated or they're not. When folks were told they couldn't read, they learned how to read.
That's right.
I mean, they ran for Congress, they ran for Senate, and they were being successful to
Right
the
after
degree.
That's
They were
right.
being successful to the degree that majority population was finding ways to cut them out of the system, and they overcame those things. The capacity to overcome all of the obstacles is still there. Whether or not there's a willingness to make the sacrifice to drive past those obstacles to victory is what's missing. People are giving up. They're feeling defeated and broken, so they stop trying. And that's when the opposition wins. You can't ever have a place where you stop trying. You can't ever have a place where you stop
can't
trying.
ever.
And if you have leaders that aren't taking you to that place, I would submit that they are not working in the best interest of the community or you. They're working in their best interests, but they're not working in the best interests of the whole. So if you look out and see your community is not prospering, if your community is stagnant and not moving forward, and you can look down the street or around the corner or go 3 or 4 blocks and see other communities thriving, then you have a serious serious problem.
That's something that popped in my head a while back when you were talking about Constitution Plaza, that and I was thinking of I'm not gonna say this right, the West Hartford Center, Blueback Square, or
Blueback
whatever
Square.
Blueback
Square. Yes.
Blueback Square. It's fun to go to Blueback Square, even though you can't buy anything because everything's too high. But it's the gathering of the people, the sitting outside in the chairs in the summertime, the people just casually walking around and all of that. That's fun to see. To me, nobody's screaming, hollering, or cussing. It's just a nice, relaxed kind of atmosphere that I found, even going into a store. It's just nice and relaxing. Okay, so but it's not that way in Hartford. Now, Constitution Plaza was supposed to be like the new Hartford, but how many times have we done it? Why does everything fail in Hartford? No, a professor really did say this in the University of Hartford. He said, there is nothing of value in the city of Hartford. That's what a professor said. So, to someone. And that's when, the University of Hartford was coming into Hartford, and they were trying to giving our kids free music lessons and singing and trying to get these things, because there was a man who, when I was a kid, this happened and that happened, whatever he said. But because they don't think anything, there's nobody of value, because it was about reading. They can get tutors in Hartford. And she said, no, they can't. There's nothing in Hartford to teach their children. But I was very insulted, because there is. And that's how people think of us. But the question, my original question is, how come Constitution Plaza failed? It was beautiful. It was wonderful.
I'm sure you can do an anatomy of the failure of Constitution Plaza, and it's not that. I'm sure it's not that complicated, because you just walk around it. How do you get to it? How do you? This is without doing a deep dive. How do you get to Constitution Plaza?
You get on a bus.
Well, no. When you get off the bus, now how do you get to it?
What do you mean? I gotta walk there. I don't understand what you're saying to me.
Well, if you go downtown Hartford proper,
right?
Pratt Street, Main Street, Trumbull Street,
it's
Asylum
off the beaten
Avenue.
path.
Well, it's off the beaten path. But if you want to go into the peanut shop, or Dunkin', or G Fox, or Sage Island, or down to the Civic Center, all right. The Civic Center is a little bit different, but most of the stores on Pratt Street, how do you get to the store? You
walk.
Right. You go to Blueback Square, but you walk. But you go to Blueback Square, and what do? It's right there. You go off the sidewalk into the store. You have to. If you're downtown, and this actually is a fact. Last year, you were there. They had the food festival.
Yes.
The Hartford Taste.
Yes.
Not to be confused with the Taste of Hartford. Up on Constitution Plaza. I had people tell me that they came down there and they didn't see anything. So they thought it must not be happening.
It was up high.
There you go. You can't get to
it's
Constitution
up
Plaza
high?
unless you were like intentional, and yet you would never stumble onto it. You can't see it. It's behind buildings. There's a highway on one side. The other side is Market Street. There's tall buildings. And unless you know it's there, you don't go up there. So it's not easy to get to. It's like a fortress. It says, stay out. Don't come here. So, there's nothing inviting about it. And if people don't feel like it's inviting, they're not going to come. They're not going to go. It's designed to fail. You know, I think I can say that with a fair amount of confidence because it did fail. They tore whole buildings down and put people out of pocket. You know, they moved they just decimated the whole Italian community and built that thing. Except for the one lady that held out and then, you know, and they built her that carve out is where her little store was.
Oh, the chicken man. That's who. Wasn't it the chicken?
Someone's was there, and that's where you get that little right across the street from the, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
People in power have bright ideas. They have connections, and they use those connections to move forward their agenda. Not a community agenda. Their agenda. How they could profit. Well, if we build this, I have friends in this industry, construction, cement, whatever the case is. And so we could profit off of this. But how's that help the community? It doesn't. But if you're not into helping the community, then you just wind up exploiting the community.
All right, go to Blueback Square. They were interested in helping the community and making money.
There's a mutually beneficial arrangement.
They benefited and the community benefited.
Right. So
if you plan for only your benefit, it's bound to fail.
It will fail because there is no benefit to the broader community. It's only a benefit to the person who's doing the work. The construction has the vision. So a lot of people can benefit, right? The architect could benefit, the construction people benefit, the laborers benefit. Everyone's benefits. It's like a virus, like a disease. And once it consumes everything, then it dies if it doesn't find another host. So people move from city. These guys move from city to city to city. They exploit all of the resource they can get out of it. Then they go to another place. Meanwhile, the communities are left in disarray. Atlantic City was like that. I mean, you could see this stuff happening all over the place. You could see it happening here in Hartford.
So that was a civic. Now, I used to love the Civic Center. I used to love to go into the Civic Center. I loved going into the stores and the restaurants. And all of a sudden, that died. So
there are a multitude of contributors to why things don't work. And I'm not suggesting that it's all because of that. But there are different things. But the people, the wizards of smart aren't thinking in how do we enrich the community that we have. They're interested in changing things for the quote unquote better for themselves or their interests, not the interests of the whole. So you even hear politicians say, well, this is not in your best self-interest, which means the only people that are being served is self. Community is not a self. Community is a collective of selves.
They were not thinking of the community.
No.
When they got rid of the YMCA,
No.
because that devastated a lot of people. That took a community thing away from us that everybody could go to in all levels of life, in all economic levels. Everybody was there. And yet they tore it down. Well, not tore it down, but closed it and put this thing downtown that nobody could go to. Totally destroyed the mission of the YMCA. Totally destroyed it. Now there's a thing up there that says the why.
Right, it's just
the why.
It was in it was in the way of someone's bigger, broader vision, and so they you close it, and then the next step will come. Hopefully, people don't care about how it impacts others as long as it serves them. until that changes, Hartford will continue to be where it is. There are individuals in this city to whom everything in it serves them.
Okay.
And the them can get real small real quick. And so there are powerful people whose interest is served. And in order to maintain their position, everyone subordinate to them or under them has to be obedient and subjugated to them to do what they want in order to insulate themselves from the threat of their demise.
Okay, so we need a mayor that's a leader to all people in the city of Hartford.
Right. And until the people choose
the mayor,
that mayor, life will continue as it has, because there's nothing to interrupt that system. Hartford is a system. It's a machine. Every place is a machine. Every place is a system. Mm-hmm. Every place made up of many, many little interests and fiefdoms. It's how do they work together for the common good? Not get rid of the fiefdom, but how do they work together for the common good? Are they working together for the common good outside of their silos, outside of their little cells of interest, where they use position and power to forward their interest? So if you take Blue back, all right, you know, I wrestle with whether to go down this road or not, but may as well. You know, West Hartford is predominantly Jewish. The Jewish community is tight. Mm-hmm. There's a community. There may not be harmony among everybody in any community, but they are a community. When the one supermarket was going to close, they said, you don't have that option. Your supermarket serves the community. It is an essential part of the community, and your demise impacts us all. So we will come together and help you. So decisions that are made for the good of the whole. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't benefit, but the benefit comes as a result of giving toward the whole. So if you have something like a Blueback Square, it's supported by people who have that mindset. That's why you can't just go and build something as successful as Blueback Square in Hartford, because that mindset's not here. People will buy up a whole side of, let's say we'll make up a street, Pratt Street. Mm-hmm. And let's make a street. We'll call the street Pratt Street, and so we'll sell the whole side of Pratt Street to an interest that, for their sake, won't rent anything out of it because they can write it off as a tax loss. So now the whole of Pratt Street as a community is impacted. There are those kinds of things that are done at the expense of the community. They don't care about the community. I don't know that CDRA, is making decisions on the benefit of what benefits Hartford and the citizens thereof when they decide to underwrite a multi-million-dollar investment in building an apartment downtown for people who can pay $2,000 to $3,000, $3,500 a month rent. But the person that's on another part of town is struggling to make ends meet. And there will be no investment in upgrading their apartment. Mm-hmm. Even though the apartment is subsidized at market rate. So if they're paying $500 or $600 or $700 a month rent, the rest of the rent is being paid by HUD. So the rent is the same as it is downtown because that's the market rate. but they're living in a substandard facility. How can you live in a substandard facility if the rent is really $1,800 or $3,000 a month? You should be living in the same standard as the $3,000 a month downtown apartment, because that's what $3,000 a month gets you. But you got black mold growing. And so you have black mold growing. You complain, and you're told if you complain again, we'll evict you. So you keep your mouth shut because you don't want to get evicted. Then if you talk to someone downtown tells you, well, that's not our problem. Well, how's it not your problem? There's housing code enforcement.
Is there?
There's absolutely housing code enforcement. Now, whether or not the mechanisms are used to enforce the housing code, that's a whole nother subject. But this isn't something that you should, as constituents that have a government that's supposed to be working in your interests, should have to fight for. This is something that you should expect. Now, let there be housing code violation in Hartford 21 and see what happens. Or at Coltville. Or any one of at the Pennant. Or any one of these newer establishments throughout the city. Or what used to be the Richardson. When I used to live in the Richardson, I had the largest square footage 1-bedroom apartment in the Richardson. When I moved out of the Richardson, I was the longest resident tenant. I moved into the Richardson when the 3rd floor, the 4th floor weren't done yet. So I've lived in some of the most fabulous apartment buildings in the city, and I've lived on Enfield Street. I've lived all over the city by choice. And so there are parts of the city that are not treated the same as other parts. I only say that to say just to back up the statement that I'm not just talking off the dome. This is a matter of fact. But people get the government that they have. They get the government they deserve because you vote for these people. If you don't hold them accountable, then they won't be accountable. To you, anyway. There's no way in the world that you should have apartments in the city of Hartford that are in the condition that they're in with human beings living in them. There's no reason.
Oh, I could.
It's unacceptable until it's acceptable. And so if you don't complain or talk about it, then it isn't a problem. That's how they process stuff. And at some point, hopefully, people will get fed up enough to vote for leadership that's going to change stuff. And change can happen. Don't ever let anyone tell you, well, it ain't going to change because the same people that ain't power. Those people, you know what? They have a bathroom. In the bathroom is toilet paper. They function. They function just like the rest of us. They're not bulletproof. They get up in the morning and worry just like everyone else. They're afraid of things like everyone else. They have shortcomings like everyone else. They're not perfect people who you need to quiver and be afraid of when you come into their presence. Some of them are more articulate than others. Other than that, they're just regular people. And folk need to stop being afraid of these folk.
They can change your lifestyle, diminish your lifestyle, and people are afraid of that.
People are afraid of that. But, the thing that gets me the most are people of faith.
They're what?
People of faith that are afraid of these people. Now, they may have all the power and all the muscle in the world. I tell you something. You start muscling up to the people of God, and you're in trouble. You're in trouble. The mighty fall. The strong have heart attacks. They suffer strokes. Their mind leaves them. and you should be afraid of these people? Who do they think they are? Who do they think they are that you should be afraid of them?
Well,
they can make people's lives miserable, but you know, when the heart goes on strike,
you did.
it's the end of the game. These are human beings. These are not. You know, they didn't come from like Krypton. Well, where did Superman come from?
I don't know.
I'm not a comic fan, but you know.
But
you am I making my point?
About the kryptonite.
Kryptonite was what harmed him.
Harmed him, yes.
Right. But Krypton, I think, was his planet.
Oh, I don't.
His home planet, I think, was Krypton, and shards of it in the Earth caused him to be weak. I think. I'm really going off the deep end here with the Marvel
thing.
and because there's people that take this stuff real seriously, you know. So I'll leave that alone. But my point is that they're not Superman. Superman is the only superhero who has to pretend to not be powerful. All the others some experiment went wrong with them, or they were this, that, and the third. Superman was actually all that in a bag of chips. He had to pretend to be meek and mild mannered. But if you shot Superman in his meek and mild manner, he was bulletproof. There aren't any Supermen here. None of these people are bulletproof. They're not. They just have positions of power. And the reason they're able to get away with the crap that they get away with is because they impose their interest on y'all at y'all's expense, and you let them get away with that.
Where did these people come from? Were they here in the 60s?
They were here in the 60s.
Were they at the level that they are now? The family, of course, not the person now, but the
Some
family.
of them were. Some of them were planners and charted a vision for their kids, their grandkids, and their, you know.
So.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's just, I'm not mad at people who have power. I'm mad at people that have power that exploit those who don't, because it's unnecessary. To whom much is given, much is required. And there's a day of reckoning coming for those folk who think they have power and that it was granted to them by themselves or some human element. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Them wanting to deny the powers that really be do not make those powers insignificant or go away. There are greater powers than theirs.
So them not talking about those powers does not make it go away.
Absolutely not.
Trying to make them disappear does not.
Right, right.
And we try so hard to do that.
Right.
We try very hard to do that.
This is why, and there's no shame in my game. This is why some of the forums, if you've attended them, they'll all ask you, how do you want to be identified in the forum? So lately I told them, put me down as Pastor Stan.
And why?
So that people can understand that there are authorities to whom others must report, that's greater than them, that's greater than government. That's all.
There's another minister, right?
Brother Dunn. But you know, in the past I just went by Stan.
Right.
You know, try to separate the two. There's a reason why they want separation of church and state.
But don't separate it. That you know.
Right. But we're not going to separate it. I only say that to encourage those out there that are the faithful. Particularly you church folk that are going to let these clowns come up in your pulpit.
Oh, God. Now that you said about a pulpit, let me just say this. The last, I went to a funeral. I won't tell you whose, but I went to a funeral. Very long. And the minister, everything that had to be said about the person that had passed on was said beautifully by everyone who spoke of her. Mm-hmm. And knowing her most of my life, you're going to know who I mean, but I shouldn't have said that. Most of my life knew that everything that they were saying to her, about her, was true. I've known her for 70-something. It was true. Mm-hmm. And so there was nothing more to say. Then, when it's time for the eulogy, I prayed that the minister would say, "It has been said." All, kind of ended with a prayer, and it's all been said, and but the minister commenced the preaching. Mm-hmm. What it was, just commenced the preaching, and no scripture, no biblical text. Mm. He was just talking stuff. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, where did he coming from? And part of the family was very upset because it wasn't anything about their loved one. It was nothing about, and it went on and on and on and on. And I'm listening and I'm saying, how does he call that preaching? Mm. Where is he coming from? If he's not coming from some kind of scripture, what's he preaching? So anyway, I was upset too. I was really upset too. But and then it ended when you said don't let anybody come up on your pulpit. Someone who's actually going to preach the word. If you're going to preach the word. If you're just going to go up there and make a speech, that's what you say you're going to do. But many preachers or many people do that, especially if they have not studied.
I've gone to more than a few churches in my time. And I've gone to more than a few where the minister has sat folk down while they're in the pulpit preaching. Then get up and all right, son, you thank you. You're finished. You're done. Yeah. Deacon, sit you down. You talking mess, don't know what you're talking about, and acting unseemly or saying stuff sit him down. And that's a responsibility of somebody who's in a leadership position at church. You cannot allow someone to have authority in that area, in that arena.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen that?
I've never. What I did, I saw while this man was talking, and he was asking for their assurance. Give me an amen, and we are so nice. We are so obliging. We're going to oblige you. If you want that, that's what we're going to give you. So we're going to get up and we're going to say our amens. And we're going to, and as long as we do that, he going to keep on going. But they were so obliging to him. But when those doors opened, people rushed out of there so fast I couldn't believe it. They started going out before he left, before he finished. They started rushing out because there was old people there. You got, my age and older. Mm. They couldn't just do that. So anyway, they started, but they were very kind to him. Mm-hmm. Very kind to him.
Well, I think think of it as being in a restaurant and someone is putting poison in the food. You have an obligation to stop them. And so, there are things that are scriptural and there are things that are not. And if someone is in that pulpit telling the congregation things that are patently untrue, then you have an obligation to say something. A lot of times people won't, or they're afraid to, or don't want to embarrass. These are the things that diminish leadership. And it's not just, it happens not just in the pulpit, but in other areas too. People need to be, we have a crisis and a failure of leadership in this country, in this city, and I would dare say in many places around the world. And it's really, really bad.
You're gonna really pay for that standing up. I stood up one time. The minister said, I know I've told you this before, Stan. The minister said, I just want to inform you and I said, that I'm doing this, that, and the other. I said, he can't inform us. We, the congregation, had the congregational meeting and doing all of this and do things. There's a structure with this. Mm-hmm. You just don't go do it on your own. So that's when I went up in front of the congregation and told him, he doesn't inform you, you inform him. Mm-hmm. I paid for that dearly. I paid for that dearly, and
who was the hander outer of the consequence of your speaking?
I'll tell you, the person who he asked to come in, who actually came in, is the one who really sucked it to me.
So the person who was this a pastor that asked?
Yeah, they asked.
A speaker came.
Yes, and they hired him, and I was doing Bible study and all of that, and some people just like to be lectured to, but my Bible studies are not just lecture. You got to do stuff. We're going to interact, but. So he came in and he kind of turned on me, and I was very polite. He was very polite. That very sick politeness people have, and the people kind of were very angry with me for getting up there and saying what I said, and then I had another encounter with him, and his whole group walked out. His whole group walked out during. I was working with another church. His whole group just walked out because I had let a white man give his experience of Africa. And when he was in Africa and he was telling all about, and these were, in my group were all senior citizens, white folks, and they were interested, and the person I asked to come was just happened to be someone who was had experience in what we're talking about. And my minister, before he left, said, whatever you do, stay in control. He must have known something was going to happen. But anyway, the man said, his wife said, how dare I have that man speak here? And they shut down. And these senior citizens, his congregation completely walked out.
Well, they're only seniors because of their age. That senior doesn't mean you diminish your mind.
No, I'm not saying senior. I'm saying we were in their church. They were at this gathering. I think it was the Easter season. And they invited these people, and they had never experienced somebody just getting up and walking out. They just got up and saying anything like he said or his wife said, and their congregation walked out with them.
There are group dynamics, and we started off the conversation to where we are kind of like right now, with a discussion about how do you pull together a city that may have different interests, wants, appetites, passions, desires, needs, this, that, and the third, to work kind of together. And that's part of the ability of those in positions of leadership, which is a little bit different than maybe power. But if you don't understand the group that you're talking to, and they get offended for any reason, they always can exercise their right to get up and leave.
They got up,
and now you have a real problem because it's hard to get those people back. So part of that nuance, you have to have that. You have to have the capacity to be able to reach across cultural lines, ethnic lines, religious lines, all those kinds of things. Otherwise, you'll lose people. You can lose people in the church just because you don't say the right thing. There's an old adage in programming, like particular radio is where I heard it from or got it from. You can program, you can play any song back to back, any song, any genre, one song and then play the next one. The one that they always used was a Marilyn Manson song and like a Jimmy Swaggart song. Like Marilyn Manson's like, straight out Satanists. And then you've got Jimmy Swaggart. You can play the songs back to back. It's the transition from the one song to the other. Because you lose both audiences by playing either one if you don't transition. So the way you say stuff, to who you say, when you say, is important.
Okay. All right. We were a mixed church. Mm-hmm. He was a black church. He knew where he was coming. I'm the one that didn't know anything.
Right. So you let the little white man.
I let the little white man
talk about his African experience.
And
the black church folk.
And the black church folks
got up and walked out.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, you learned something, didn't you?
And my my minister and then he reported me. This minister, black minister, reported me to my brother. I'm going to tell Phil on you. I'm going to tell Phil on. Phil's my younger brother. What he going to, and we had gatherings together. Mm-hmm. Phil never said anything to me. He knew better than that. We had gatherings together after that. Never spoke to him for years. Years. So you say it was my learning.
No.
We speak now.
Right, but I'm not trying to say that it was your fault. I'm saying you learned a valuable lesson. That's all.
I certainly did, and I certainly did.
But it would have been nice had the black minister and his congregation been more tolerant. But point in fact, they weren't. And the reality of where people are is much more beneficial than where we would like for them to be.
How could you have this white man talking to me and blah, 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 have him speak? And
I can understand that.
And he tried to speak over me, which wasn't going to happen. He was not going to control this situation. So since he couldn't control it, he left.
I don't know if you remember when my man Marcus was at Shiloh when Al
Oh, I heard about that. Oh,
Sharpton
Lord.
came.
Everybody heard about that. And so
And
I
so
wasn't there, but I heard about it.
the truth of the matter was there was a whole bunch of ministers in the back talking about Reverend Sharpton. And Marcus said to them, why don't you say out loud what you're saying here? Of course, none of them would. So he did. He was articulating what they were talking about.
Why did he take that upon
Reverend Sharpton never lost control of the moment. Now, the accusation, the charge was, how dare you come into this city, pimping the people, raising money.
Yeah.
So, Al took $1,000 out of his wallet. Oh, you want them street people? He went deep. He said, I got $1,000 on the wood toward the project. Where's your money? Shut it down. So, when you're in a position of leadership, whether it's behind a pulpit, whether it's on a stage, wherever it is, you have to maintain control. Not for purposes of power, but just because the leader has to, otherwise he ceases to be
that's
the
true.
leader. And that dynamic change is fluid. So at that point, the congregation became the leader. They got up and they left.
Right. They got up and they left because they could not control this. I wasn't going to let that happen.
Sometimes the best way to control
Is not to control.
is to let go.
Oh, I couldn't do that. I could not do that after the horrible things that they said. I could not do that. I could not.
Use it as a teachable moment. I bet you could, if you went back in time with what you know now, you could do it.
I might be able to to do that, but I was so shocked. I was so shocked that I went into defense mode.
Yeah, see that yeah.
I went into defense. I was shocked. I had never seen anything like that before. I had never seen anyone act like that before. And it came from his wife first, and then himself. His congregation did not react, because a lot of his congregation at that time came from faith. They were not shocked with this. They were United Church of Christ.
I could tell this was a UCC church from the beginning of the conversation.
Yes, it was a UCC church before they joined his church.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that it was definitely a shock to me, because we don't act like that.
Well, there's church dynamics is always very, very interesting. Certain church governance and church dynamics change from different denominations to different churches and the structures.
Yes.
And there are some churches where it's inconceivable that the congregation is going to tell the pastor what to do. And then there are other churches where the pastor is totally subordinate to the congregation.
That's more like the UCC.
Right. The Constitution is built really around the UCC church.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yes, right. They function in almost identical
Yep.
ways.
Yep.
It's been UCC since the 50s, but they're really just
Congregational.
They're all
the congregational church.
Congregational churches, and they do. There's things about the congregational church that I could not get used to, because I'm a Methodist.
Yeah, the UCC. You have the church moderator is the one with all the power.
It took me a long time to get comfortable with the UCC.
Mm-hmm.
There's several reasons why I went different ways, but Yeah, that was an experience. That was an experience for me, Pastor Stan. I didn't know what to do with it, but all I knew was my pastor had said, "Do not you stay in control." Mm-hmm. Now he must have known something.
That was the day he decided to let you preach.
That I did. I did not know. But you're right. I never thought of it the way you're saying it to me now. I never thought of it that way. But you're right. Yeah. I was angry with that man for a long time. He was not angry with me for as long as I was angry with him. Mm-hmm. You know, he talked to me, and after
principle. It was the principle. Sometimes we get. I never forget, and I love Pastor Stringer, Terry Stringer, with all my heart. I never forget the time we were doing a play at his church. We used to have a signature play called The Door, Light Source Stage Company, and we did that play. And part of the play is the guy, he smokes, and so he's smoking a cigar. He's being disrespectful to his mother, and the play makes a very. I mean, the scene makes a very good point. There's a series of monologues and dialogues between singular actors and two actors, and it's where the person is when they meet Christ as he comes to the door. Mm-hmm. And in this particular scene, it was the last scene because it drives home the whole point of the need to accept Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. And he's drinking. He's drinking and he's smoking when his mother comes home. And she's not going to have that in her house. Well, the drinking was right on the edge. It wasn't alcohol, but it was apple juice. But it's in a liquor bottle. And when he lit that cigar, they turned the lights on. The security came. They kicked us out. And we were trying to figure out what was going on. Next thing you know, we was outside the church. Because Harry has standards. And that is not going to be allowed in this sanctuary. I don't care who you are. Period. Get out. And you have to respect that.
But
so I've been kicked out. Huh?
Couldn't he just tell you that?
Wasn't nothing to say. Get out. That's what you say. Well, you have to have standards. And there have to be consequences for violating those standards. Otherwise, you don't have rules. So, I mean, I respect him for that. I don't have no animosity. I'm not saying this to be shady or under him. I'm just saying that, I understand. Because you grow. So I've grown through certain experiences. So, everything is lawful, but not everything is, expedient. You can't just do any old thing, any old way, any old where. So it's good to know these things before you get started in terms of what you can do, what you can't do, and what's acceptable, and to know these things in advance. Mm-hmm. So you learn. So I mean, I've had a lot of learning. I done learned some things.
I've kind of learned. I don't know how much I've learned, but I've kind of learned.
I have a picture to show you. Let me see if I can pull this up. I'm going to show you this picture real quick. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll show you when you get back. I'm going to show you all of we're going to take a short break. And we'll be back now. I'll show you this picture. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. It's Morning Talk. Your host, J. Sam McCauley. And stay tuned to after the program, those of you who have the time, want to spend the time. I was a guest on a program earlier this week called The Smoke Break. And it was a very interesting conversation. It's an hour and 19 minutes. We're going to play after we go off the air here. I'm going to let it just play. And so, stick and stay. All right. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. I will show Miss Cleo this picture real quick and then we'll continue. Morning Talk.
How do you define evil? Is evil the pedophile school administrator or taxation without representation? Is it the gatekeeping community leaders who sell out the very people they were elected to fight for? Or is evil the politician that puts out lies and takes in cash? However you may classify evil, having to choose the lesser of two evils still leaves you with evil. Nowhere does this rule apply more than during an election for mayor. Choosing a candidate who is the lesser of two evils still leaves you with evil. No wonder so many people don't vote. It's time for the constituents to flip the script and vote for a mayor you can trust. My name is Jason McCauley. I am an independent thinker and I approve this message. I'm asking you for your vote on Tuesday, September the 12th, 2023 in the Democratic Party primary election for mayor for the city of Hartford. I, like you, am an independent thinker. So let's sit down and talk about my path to victory and why my 5-point plan for Hartford will work. Stop listening to the uninformed evil interests that tell you I can't win. For more information, visit McCauleyformayor.com. Have the courage to vote your conscience. Vote for the name you trust and know. Vote McCauley for mayor.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, welcome back. It's Morning Talk. I'm your host, J.C. McCauley, along with the champions of talk. I wanted to show Miss Cleo this picture before we left because it's something she was saying about a professor at the college. Was saying about oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on there. I had put you on. I know you was gonna put you saying you had a professor saying nothing good was in Hartford at the university. I've never shown this picture before. This is my aviation maintenance school. I went to aviation maintenance. This is one reason why I'm a big fan of keeping the airport open and the school down there is because I went to school on an airport that taught me how to become an aircraft mechanic. So aviation. This guy here, his last name was Kuderbach. I can't remember his first name. He was an ex-Marine. This is Mr. Hampton. This is Dale Ezra. This was the secretary. Everybody used to just call her the secretary. Well, they didn't actually call her the secretary because these were all guys. Most of them were ex-military. And there's only like 3 of us that were kids.
I see you.
You see me? Here I am. The only chocolate colored individual in the group. Yeah, I was 18 here. So I graduated at 19, and of course I went to I left here and came to Hartford. Oddly enough, I'm sitting next to or stooping next to Mr. Villard. And he told me, he begged me, do not go to Hartford. There is nothing good there. That's what he told me.
Well, second opinion, huh?
He said there's nothing good there. Don't go to Hartford. You don't want to go there. He was from Hartford, Mr. Villard. This kid here, his last name was Horton. Horton Aviation. Now, a lot of these guys, Skip, Nielsen, a lot of these guys, of course, were motorheads. They built cars. They worked on cars and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so they would drive cars to school. Everybody had a car because you had to drive to school. Horton, he flew a different plane to school every week. His family owned an airport, and they sold planes. So he would he would fly a different plane to school every week. But these were just regular people. I recognize all their faces. I don't remember the names, except for my buddy here. I'm still kind of in touch with him through Facebook. This guy here was really a nice guy. He was always looking out. This guy here was the enforcer. No one messed with him. He was the ex-Marine, Kuderbach. And there was a couple of us.
That guy came from Hartford and said there was nothing.
This guy right here, Mr. Villard. Yeah, they used to call her the sexetary. You guys, guys,
Yeah.
Yeah. And she had to put up with all of these men. Men can be quite the knuckleheads, especially when half of them are ex-GIs. You can only begin to imagine. Mm-hmm. Right, so yeah, so that was my class, the Upper Bucks County School of Aviation Maintenance. So that's why I'm a huge fan of keeping the airport open.
Are we still fighting that?
Yeah, there's people who want to close the airport.
And our present mayor is one of them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So when he leaves, maybe that'll go away.
I hope so.
If he doesn't get someone in there to just continue on his.
Yeah, there's so much that could be done with that airport. It just didn't begin to make. It just who would close an airport? It's a tremendous asset for the city if the city actually got behind making it into something that could be useful. But I digress. All right, Miss Cleo, we're out of time.
Wow.
I do have a special that I'm going to show, though, for the next hour after I go off the air. There's a special. It's called The Smoke Break. I was a guest on this program this week, and it was a really cool show. So I'm going to share the show with y'all, and I hope that you... The Smoke Break.
It comes on every week?
I think it comes on every week.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the smoke break. They're smoking cannabis.
Oh, really?
They're smoking cannabis and then they interview the people. Their guests are interviewed during their smoke break, and so they're consuming cannabis, like an old Dean Martin show where they would consume martinis. The Rat Pack.
Oh, okay.
Martini here. Dean's got a martini. Frank's got a martini. Sammy's got a martini. Everybody's got a martini, right? Joey, hey, what's going on over there, Sammy? I'm over here, Sammy, over here. I mean, just ruthless humor.
Peter Lorre.
Peter Lorre.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, you all have a great rest of your day. Have a great week, and do something kind for your friends and family. Thanks, Miss Cleo, for coming in.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. I loved it.
All right. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and NBs all across the internet. You already know what time it is. This is The Smoke Break with DJ Stealth and the Trouble One.
Me?
Yes, you are the troublesome one.
Yes, I am.
You're the troublemaker. I'm the peacemaker. And tonight we have a very, very special guest, a legendary guest, actually. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the world.
Hello, everyone. I'm J. Stan McCauley, a local guy here around town, trying to do my best to keep people informed and give people a voice.
Yes, that's right.
So, you have this show, everyone watches it, so we're really honored that you're on our show because everyone knows all things Hartford. You go to your Twitter page, you have a Twitter that we retweet at times. You have your Facebook page, which people follow. So you're kind of a big deal because you always broadcast around town, so you're always where things happen. So...
Yeah, that's I am generally where things are happening. I never really think of myself as somebody that other people are retweeting and following and things like that. So, that's I guess that's good news because obviously we want people to know about stuff, and in this modern age of social media, I guess that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of a big deal around town because everyone knows your name. So everyone knows whether or not they disagree with you. You're president of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance.
Yep.
So you're always there at the school board meetings. You kind of know what's going on around town. And I know you've ran for mayor a couple times.
Yes.
And then this time you were kind of standing on the sidelines, and then you decided to run for mayor again. But when you pull up, I don't think people know, you pull up in the most awesome manner, that bus. And I wish I knew you were about to pull in because that entrance at Camora's this weekend was amazing. If someone needs a DJ and Assad's not available, they need to hire you.
Well, they don't need to hire me. They need to hire the driver. Yeah. So, Brother Marcus, that's my ride or die buddy. Yeah, he does audio. So I do video. I dabble in audio, but he does sound. So he does sound from inside our mobile campaign office and through the windows to a park as big as the Bushnell. So he is the sound guy. And he likes to make an entrance. So when he pulled in, you can't help but know he's there.
Yeah, and we tweeted out the video as much as we could get because as soon as I saw you, I had to capture it. The way that everyone was just captivated. We all kind of circled around. You see my son and a whole bunch of kids like, who's this? And I remember telling my son, I'm like, yeah, that's the guy who's on the side of the van and he's running for mayor. He's like, oh. So it was pretty awesome just to see you pull up in the community. But I mean, you're always here anyways.
Yeah, I like I like telling Hartford's story. For me, capturing the stories of Hartford, the people of Hartford has been like one of my greatest joys. I'm a free speech absolutist. I believe people should be able to say whatever is on their hearts, whatever is on their minds. If what they say piss people off, then they have to deal with the fact that they've pissed people off, or the people that are pissed off got to deal with them. So I'm a big fan of owning your words, no anonymous posts. And I believe that if people were, true and honest and spoke their minds, we would be a lot better off because then you'd know where you need to start. Then you can really understand where people are coming from. You can make the adjustments. Everyone's not going to always get along. And I kind of look at ideas like, food on a menu. Very rarely do you see people go out to eat. They sit down and they start, beefing and going off because someone over there is eating an egg salad sandwich. Well, I don't like egg salad sandwich. Who you think you are eating an egg salad sandwich? We got an egg salad sandwich eater over here. Let's jump him and beat him to death. So I mean, that's how I feel about about free speech. Golden rule number 1 when broadcasting: turn off phone. I should know better.
You know what? It happens to the best of us.
It happens to the best. So it had to happen to me, right? No, I'm just joking. But ideas that people have, I think, help people grow. And we're not all supposed to have the same ideas. And to me, true diversity is when you have diversity of thought. And so I like to surround myself with people who disagree with me, because then I find I grow. The reason I probably disagree is because my point of view is ignorant of the other person. So how can they help me better understand the world? How can they better help me understand myself? So I've been giving people voice for over 40 years. I go out and I videotape and give people voice. I generally do it on my own dime because, I consider myself a blessed individual, and I think blessed people owe it to be a blessing to other people. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because how can you really truly learn if everyone thinks exactly the same?
Right.
You need new ideas to bounce off of each other, then both of you are creating something new that neither one of you thought of. Absolutely.
And then if you surround, I think the worst thing that people can do is to surround themselves with yes people.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes. I've been saying that for the longest.
That's like a disaster waiting to happen. You
get tired of it, and you can't grow. And I mean, if you're smart enough, you get sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, then you just get this unchecked ego, and you're just going to fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a tragedy when people in leadership positions surround themselves with people who aren't, one, smarter than they are, two, agree with everything they say, and three, are yes people. And so, that usually, to me, is a sign of insecurity. If the person is in charge, they're in charge by default of the position, title, or chair that they occupy. And it's not really them that has the authority. It's the title, the position, or the chair that has the authority. And so smarter people than you help you do a better job. So anytime I can surround myself with people who know more than me, particularly on anything, I count it a blessing. So
you want to hear something funny? So there's this rapper. Her name is Glorilla. She's very young, up and coming.
Mm-hmm.
So the internet actually had this huge debate over this common sense thing you just said, because she said, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And they said, oh, she wants to be dumb. No. Glorilla said she doesn't want to be the smartest person in the room because she wants to learn from people who are smarter than her.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people were ignorant to the message she was sending, which is, if you're the smartest person in the room, get out and go to the next room, because you're teaching everyone instead of learning.
Right.
And sometimes it's okay to be a teacher, but you need to grow yourself. So it was a shame to see that in our society, that this really smart, talented young girl is, her words are being taken out of context. And, I really worry about society, kind of like you said, yes, men.
They didn't even give a thought to where she comes from, her background. She's from Memphis. She's from a church home.
Mm-hmm.
So her discovery of hip hop was late in her youth,
mm-hmm.
compared to the rest of us that grew up with it since the beginning. So she discovers hip hop at 16, and now at the age of 24, she's one of the rising stars in hip hop.
Mm.
And her voice is different, her subject matter is different, and she's managed to curate a mixed audience of both male and female fans without selling sexuality as a point to attract her male fans.
Mm-hmm.
So with all of that, she's just a small fish in a big pond. So she has plenty of room to learn, and she wants that.
Mm-hmm.
But
they're making fun of her because she wants to learn.
Well, there's always going to be a critic,
And, I have a saying that says, people have a right, one, to disagree with you. And it's not my business what other folks say about me. So, they got a right to say whatever they want. It matters what they say only if you make it matter. So they have a right to be wrong. Let them be wrong and say whatever they want. And keep it stepping. Because if you believe a thing and, your thoughts are the greatest natural resource you have, if you believe a thing to be so, go out there and make it happen. Don't let the naysayers get in the way of your success. Don't let them crush your dream. There's always going to be a parade of people waiting on the sidelines to crush whatever dream you have. You'll find people will be jealous. They'll undermine. They'll backstab. This, that, and the third. It's a good idea to just get away from those kinds of people, because they're not there to help you. They're there to hinder you. And I think the sooner people can differentiate between helpers and hinderers, the sooner they start on their path to success. Because most successful people had someone telling them that wouldn't work. That's not going to work. Oh, yeah. Who you think you are? You think you're smart? Thank you for warning me. I won't be back. And just step on. But the young lady is clearly someone who's quite insightful, and she did the right thing. Step out from them and go find someplace else, because I always like to point at Google. I'm not a PhD. I'm nowhere near, but Google hires PhDs. Like, can you imagine sitting in a room of creative people who everyone is a PhD, and you're just bouncing ideas off of one another, and you've got the freedom to do what you want and the money and the resources to just try stuff. And when you get around people that are free thinkers, willing to try things, willing to try something and it doesn't work, and tweak it or realize, we tried that, it didn't work, let's try something else, and not afraid to fail, and just keep trying until you get it perfected. So the more you're around people who are like-minded only in this sense, that they're free thinkers and willing to take a risk, the better. Because those are the kinds of people who have ideas. That's one thing that I think is so important to understand about Hartford. Part of my, run for mayor in the campaign is I believe that all of the things that Hartford needs in terms of its future are in Hartford. They're in Hartford. They don't need to be imported here from somewhere else. They're here, and no one listens to the people of Hartford. The people of Hartford are treated like the young lady you were talking about. Well, I have an idea. Well, who are you? Well, I was born and raised in Hartford. Oh, an instant disqualifier. What do they know? I mean, that's how Hartford is treated. And I've seen that happen to people that are considered the more well-to-do in the West End, to folk all the way down in the lower ends of what people may say. No one listens to Hartford people. To me, it's the most frustrating thing to witness and document. But my camera's given me the ability to go in, have conversations with people, and more importantly, listen to people's conversations. And when you listen to people's conversations, you start to hear the wisdom. And you start to see that the person that lives over on Park Street is no different than the person that lives on Albany Avenue, who's no different than the person that lives on Evergreen, that no difference the person that lives up on Farmington Avenue, or on the south side of Farmington Avenue, or the north side of Farmington Avenue, or on one side of the block on Enfield Street. There's a good part of Enfield Street and a bad part of Enfield. I mean, Hartford is a funny town. So
it really is.
You cross the street, you're in another neighborhood. Only in Hartford is the other side of the street another neighborhood. But it's one city, one neighborhood, one great group of people with ethnic diversity that puts us, as an international city. And I think it's time that people start tapping into who we are as people in Hartford, have some pride in who we are, stop being apologetic about who we are, and turn our city into a force to be reckoned with on the world stage. It can be done with the people we have here in Hartford.
Yes. Now, I need you to hold that thought. We're about to cut to commercial break, but before we do, just wanted to let you guys know that we have a couple sponsors today. So right now, we're smoking out of a Hempire cone. Give me the box real quick. Here we go. So Hempire, we did tag them in the post earlier, and these are actually really clean burning.
Yes.
So, if we were asked to spend money on this in the future, we would.
Highly recommended.
Like, I thought it was going to be funny tasting because there's been other papers that we will not name, and there's been other papers that we wouldn't recommend, but yeah, we will recommend these. And that we met them at NECAN, and they were awesome. So thank you very much. We will be smoking you guys next week. Next, where's the one hitter?
Okay, so this is another addition to our usual sponsorship.
Yes, right here. This is going to be DJ Stealth's first time using this. Now, it blew my mind, but I want him to give me an honest review of the one hitter.
Okay, and I will be using a Snoop Dogg
Bic lighter.
That's the man right there.
And thank you very much, Bic, for the lighter. And we did get our pick of Snoop Dogg lighters. So.
All right.
Yo, right? Doesn't that hit like a spliff instead of a one hitter?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, that's the plugs for the cannabis culture. Now
no, be honest though. Doesn't it hit like a spliff instead of a little glass one hitter?
Yeah, it doesn't make you feel like you're doing something bad. It's an easy way to consume. And
now the difference though, real quick, is the mesh right here and so that is the difference, and it is still a one hitter. And a message from Kimura's Cultural Corner. It is a video that tells you everything she does and nothing, but make sure to check out Kimura's Cultural Corner for more because it's just awesome.
Practicing and living in community means that we're responsible to ourselves and others. It means that we're committed to engaging humbly and bravely with others who we may not agree with, but who share a similar worldview. Tensions and conflicts are gifts that allow us to grow together. Join our peaceful revolution.
And we're back with J. Stan McCauley, who is telling us all about how Hartford solutions are already in the city and they don't need to be imported. And here we go.
All right. One of my favorite human beings in the world, Kimura Harrington. Yes, absolutely. Support her to 110%.
Hold on. Is that the static on mine or yours?
Yours.
Oh boy, should we switch?
Can you hear me?
We're having audio difficulties.
Yeah, we can hear you though. Do you hear static on your end from us?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Leave any comments below if you hear static. Okay. And just go ahead.
Okay. So the situation with Hartford's brain trust, those would be those individuals who I guess sit in the high towers to determine whether or not they actually want to listen to the small little people like us. And I've had opportunity to have my cameras in their presence as well. And one of the things I think is interesting is there seems to be this idea or notion that somebody has to determine what is best for everybody else. And to me, I find that to be sad. But I think Hartford has come to a place where it's beginning to understand that it does have options, and that if the people come together and rally and start to believe in one another and lift one another up, that, together Hartford can rise. And it's interesting that you played that little piece about Kamora's Cultural Corner, because her piece spoke to what we were just kind of like talking about, where there's cultural humility and people that don't agree coming together and hearing one another. I think when you find communities where there is a thriving communities, they've already overcome that challenge. And Hartford's been a city of silos for so long that people find comfort in their own little silo or echo chamber where they talk back and forth about the things that are near and dear to them and in the silo, but they don't get along with people outside the silo. So until we work together to move things forward, we're not going to get far. I can't hear you. I can't hear you guys. Yeah, we can't hear you. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. So we're using my mic.
Okay.
Okay. So what I was going to say is I was criticizing Governor Lamont.
Oh, okay.
And I was saying that he surrounds himself around a whole bunch of yes men. I believe it's a hindrance to progress.
Absolutely.
And a lot of state reps, unfortunately, they are very sensitive to criticism. Instead of taking feedback, knowing that people might say things online, what I find that they do is they dig their heels more. And
they double down.
They double down. And, if a whole bunch of people are talking crap and everything else, just understand that, they might be in desperate situations. So they don't have time to be nice. You're on the taxpayer dime.
Absolutely.
So if someone's in the middle of an eviction, they don't have time for you to sit there and consider rent caps. They're going to call you a jerk.
Well, I think what happens with elected officials is they become elected officials instead of elected representatives.
Yeah.
Our system is designed that we have people who represent us, but they still work for us. Now, see, that little teeny part they forget. They are our representatives. Of course, now, as a candidate for mayor, I am applying to have the executive seat in the city. I'm applying for a job. And every last person that is a voter or an elector or citizen of Hartford are my potential employers, my potential board of directors, if you will. Who I am accountable to and answerable to. But as a constituent, when I go to talk to elected officials, they're not doing me a favor for listening. They're not doing me a favor for letting me have access to my tax dollars. It's like going to the bank and you want to take money out of the bank and they say, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do, Mr. McCauley. I think that your plan sounds solid, and I think maybe we might let you have, what do you think, Bobby? Maybe $5. I think he's, well, let me see if we can get $5. You know what? Give me all of my money and let me close out the account and move on. And so I love when politicians talk about, the money they got for you. It's not your money. You ain't cutting a check out of your private account. You're redistributing the taxpayers' dollars. So all of us are equal when it comes to going up and asking for money from the big piggy bank from which we all make our contributions. Now, you can't give money to everybody. I guess you're going to have some sort of system where you evaluate who gets what, who's got priorities here and there. And that's a fair argument. It's a fair debate, a fair discussion. But to dismiss constituents, to treat them like they don't matter, that is unacceptable. To me, that is an application for dismissal. That it's time to go out and start getting signatures for their removal. And
can we talk about how hard it is to primary candidates after you finish what you said? Because you're right.
How hard it is to primary candidates?
Yeah, we actually have some of the most restrictive primary laws in the nation.
Yes.
Several candidates, both Democrat and Republican last year, filed lawsuits because of it. Well, that actually needs to be changed. That's why we never have primaries in Connecticut. Maud Herezi was a very big deal because he's possibly the closest that you've gotten in a while.
He was running against John Larson, right? Yeah. In fact, we had him on our program at one point. Yeah, those are party rules. I'm a Democrat. I've been cross-endorsed by the Republicans.
I remember.
Pedro Segarra was cross-endorsed by the Republicans. Everyone's cross-endorsed by the Republicans in Harvard because there aren't any. So they have to find someone who's not a Republican to run for them. Having said that, the party is the one having the primary. And so the party rules, it would be very difficult to change that in Connecticut. The only way to change that is for people to get involved in the party and then make those changes. Because the political party is still a mechanism that represents the people. So your town committee folk are the heart of the party. Because those people are elected by you and me to represent us at the party level. So people need to have far more conversations with their town committee folk so that their town committee people understand more that they're accountable to you, the electorate, than they are the party bosses. All right. And so all government is local. It really does work from the ground up. When it stops working from the ground up, then it becomes top heavy down, and then they become officials instead of representatives. So it's easy to take back. If that's the change people want, they have to be involved. And they got to go to the different meetings that they have. They got to go to when they have town committee meetings, they have to show up at those things. They got to show up at city council meetings. They got to show up at Board of Education meetings, because all of those people in your absence will do what they think is best. And, people generally don't go out and get the opinions of folk that they don't agree with, because most people are not like yourselves and me, want to hear from the people they disagree with. They generally will cancel them out, shut them down. That's when they bring in the security expert. It's this extra security. Well, the crowd might get ruckus, so we have extra security in case you ask us a question we don't want to answer. That kind of stuff, which is ridiculous. But if we put up with it, we have the government we voted for. Therefore, we have the government we deserve, because we could always vote them out. And that voting amount has to be followed with action. It's not something people can say. It's something people have to demonstrate. So to me, no one should run unopposed. Nobody. I don't care who they are. No one should run unopposed. So after I win in November, I should be challenged. I should be challenged. I'm never good enough that someone doesn't need to challenge me. No one is. And so that's something that they have to prove on an ongoing basis. And you get to do that every 4 years in Harvard. Once upon a time it was every 2 years, but since the strong mayors come around, every 4 years they should be challenged. That's how you keep them in check. Because if you don't keep them in check, it doesn't really matter who it is. In time, people become people. And if you don't keep them accountable, then they will become out of control. And in my opinion, accountable means consequence. There's no such thing as accountability without consequence. So if someone does something, it's not personal. We got to put you in check, right? We got hard check. So, there has to be, there has to be a level of humility for those who are in positions of leadership. If they don't show it naturally, then you bring it out of them the old-fashioned way. Show up with some signs. Stand out in front of their house. And then don't let them bamboozle you with false promises, and don't let them get away with not delivering when they tell you something. That's how you hold these people in check.
When I did that.
Well, you won't be arrested when you stand in front. Well, first of all, there won't be no need for you to stand in front of my house. However, if you choose to do so, you will not be arrested for exercising your free speech.
Yeah, and I mean, I just wanted to spark a conversation, Matt Ritter. I'm glad you introduced the legalization bill on an emergency basis the day before our court date.
Is that?
It was like, I guess a no harm, no foul, because he didn't pursue charges. So, we kind of smoked weed in front of his house on the sidewalk and were arrested for it. Well, for trespassing.
Trespassing. Well, yeah. I can see where certain people will do these things. That doesn't mean that so did he go all the way with how did it end up?
So the charges were dropped. He didn't want to pursue them, and he introduced the legalization bill on an emergency basis the day before our court dates.
Oh, so your action worked.
Yeah. And it was mostly an action for homegrown, and we wanted equity in the bill. So those dollars in cannabis, they should go to us. They should go to the hood kids. They should go to the people that went to jail for this. We need to release all of them. It should go to the people that were most impacted, not to some general fund.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, if you're going to bring cannabis to a place where it's legal, as it is, then the people who were most impacted from it should be the first in line to receive the benefit of it. The fight for legalization of cannabis in my orbit goes to Cliff Thornton, who's, I don't know if you all are familiar with Cliff. He ran for governor a couple times here in Hartford, but he was one of the early warriors here in Hartford area and across the country. And if you took the profit out of the illegal underground market and put those profits where they could bear the most use, you'd change a lot of the things that are wrong within the society in terms of the violence, and you would undercut some of the the monies of the people who are making hundreds of millions of dollars, who use those who are on the street level, and wind up making hundreds of millions of dollars off of them every which way but sundown, and then they wind up in jail for something that no one else is serving time for. So yeah.
Now that you mentioned that, you reminded me kind of Ronald Reagan, right? So my goal is to own a dispensary with my family. I want to change the law to where it's equitable enough, and whatever. I'm also social equity applicable, but I want to be a bigger drug dealer than Ronald Reagan.
Well, Reagan was pretty big, and not as big as the Sackler family, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
You got to be big enough to buy an insurance company. There you go, the old-fashioned way, right?
Yes.
But yes, Ollie North. I remember that whole thing. Yes, I was. Yeah,
you and I were born the year that it was really going on.
Yeah, I was. I remember it like it was yesterday. The whole. I'm 63, so I remember all of that. In fact, during that whole Iran-Contra controversy, the Jimmy Swaggart issue came up, and it served as a great distraction. So there's a lot of threads that need to be threaded as we go back in time and look at some of these things. But it's always when the big guys get caught up, and the way they exploit. So you've got a lot of people who are out there colonizing. They come into cities, they exploit the people, they reap whatever profits that are there, and they put people in positions of great power, and the people become marginalized. And as long as they're marginalized, then they become dependent on the very people who should be serving them. Instead, they wind up being exploited. And,
Right. The black and brown communities and the Native American reservations.
Yeah. So we got to divest away from fossil fuels, divest in hemp. We have to, move away from opiates, move towards cannabis. Divest in the private prison industrial system, invest in mental health and housing. So,
absolutely.
They're talking about bringing a hockey stadium now to Hartford. And I'm like, who's going to pay for it?
There's talk of bringing a hockey team. What they want to do is...
he's meeting with the owner,
Lamont.
Yeah,
Lamont. As to whether or not they come here will remain to be seen. But the stadium, they want to invest, I guess, $100 million to revamp that stadium. Brighter minds than mine are behind that, but I would question whether or not there are activities that would support that kind of investment in an arena like the Excel Center at this stage of the game, particularly when you consider that the casinos and the Indian tribes have facilities that could almost do the same thing. So who's benefiting? All right, for us in our campaign, everything comes down to impact. What's the impact on the constituent from this action that you're undertaking? Not who can make money. All right. It's always about how much money can be made, and therefore from those profits a tax can be drawn. But the tax is so minimal when you consider the enormity of the profit made that it's almost like a little sleight of hand payoff. If you guys just be quiet and take this and go away. And you kind of get that feeling. And meanwhile, you're footing the bill. All right, tax dollars are your dollars. They're your dollars. And so it wouldn't be so bad if there were no poor people in Hartford. This is like, depending upon who you ask or what research you look at, this is either the 4th or the 8th poorest city of its size in the country. Hartford camouflages and hides its poverty very, very well. But this is an extremely impoverished city. There's a lot of money in Hartford, in the corporate sector, government, the seat of power here for the state. So there's a lot of money in Hartford, but the people in Hartford are poor. Hartford is small enough that poverty should be, it should be a mark against leadership in the capital city, from state leadership to municipal leadership to even religious and business leadership, that the city is stuck in this pool of poverty, and it's okay with the people who could actually make a change. So, if poverty was gone in Hartford and they eliminated poverty, then we could have those other conversations, but not at the expense of those who are trapped in poverty. You go to other foreign countries where they are producing, as you mentioned about the fossil fuels, the people in those countries are not poor. Everyone is good to go. All right. And it's reflected in the society around them. If we had leadership that said, okay, there's an opportunity to make hundreds of millions of dollars in Hartford, but before we walk away with hundreds of millions of dollars, let's make the people who actually live here whole, so that they're not scraping and struggling. so that we could at the very least have the conversation from between the haves and the have-nots. If the haves were willing to do their fair share in making sure that the have-nots are no longer the have-nots, because they're making their money off of all of us. All of us. The quote-unquote have-nots go to the store and they pay taxes on things they buy. So it's not like they don't pay tax. They may not be paying income tax because they're not making they're not making money because they may be quote-unquote unemployed. But anytime there's an opportunity to change that dynamic, those dynamics are usually squashed. Because, as I like to say, we are the cotton. We don't need to grow cotton. You don't need to pick cotton. You are the cotton. We are the cotton. So we're used as part of a very intricate and elaborate vote rigging scheme, because you can be taken off the shelf, sprinkle little monies around, 100,000 here, 300,000 there, 600,000 there, little community groups, and suddenly we go away and we're happy. You vote for who they tell you to vote for, then they put you back on the shelf for 4 years, and nothing changes. And so at some point, the people of Hartford have to realize what's happening to them. They have to rally together, pull their voice together, and vote for leadership that's going to be accountable. And I can really push that now because after 12 years, I haven't changed. My message hasn't changed. And I've been serving the people for 12 years. And if you want a fair assessment of what people are going to do in the future, look at what they've done in the past. All right. If they haven't done squat in the past, then they're not likely to do squat in the future. So there's a lot of people running saying what they're planning to do, yet they've not done anything with all the opportunity that they have. And I don't consider handing out money as part of your job. Doing something. That's your job, right? You're supposed to hand out money to community groups because it's their tax dollars. So I don't consider that I don't consider that a win. I consider that your job, right? On that basis, then we should be electing garbage people, because if they go on strike, we all suffer, right? So if we're going to talk about the people who are doing their job every day in the trenches, on the street, making it clean, making it happen, working against the odds, like the people at DPW, making sure the lawns are all cut. No one champions them when they do their job. Yet politicians want to run around talking about what they did. Like, that's your job. That's why we pay you. You don't get a kudos for that. That's your job. All right? So the kudos should come when we can look at poverty and say, well, poverty has declined. Or we can say jobs in Hartford have increased. And
now I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the houses over in Chatham Oak and Rice Heights went up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18 years old, and God, I wish I applied for a home loan at the time, because I think I would have gotten approved, because credit was very loose back then. And the houses were selling between $11,000 to $75,000. When adjusted for inflation, right now in today's dollars, that's between $18,000 to $124,000.
Mm-hmm.
So when adjusted for inflation, that's still extremely low. And that area, me being a Chatham Oak kid, I remember how it used to be. And the same people moved in. And you see how it is now compared to the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel it was intentional that they didn't do that in the north end of Hartford and instead made a whole bunch of rentals?
Hartford is the capital city of the richest state in the nation. You can underline this, record it, play it when you go to meetings. Every single decision in this city is a political decision. Nothing happens by accident. Every once in a while, lightning strikes, but nothing happens by accident. So the houses that were rental are rental on purpose. clearly.
Do you think they should encourage more home ownership and, in a matter of racial equity, maybe seek to do the same thing in the North End and expand it compared to what they're doing now? Because look at the same people from Shadow Oak, and beautifully manicured lawns.
Well, there's
kids playing outside.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for home ownership because, of course, it's now yours. I think there should be every opportunity made possible for home ownership, particularly first-time ownership, because it's an investment into the community. That does come with some challenges because everyone can't afford a home. So what happens to the person that needs to rent or the person that doesn't want to own a home? A lot of people don't want to own homes because, I'm not gonna throw cold water on the idea of home ownership, but having owned 2 homes, I rent. In my mind, I'm good. I don't never want to own another home because the home owns me. I like to be able to, folk get funky, neighbor starts walking around upstairs or something like that. I'm that guy that moves. I don't get into neighbor wars. I'll move in a heartbeat. You can't move from your house when your neighbor's going off. But I digress. I think that
there should definitely still be affordable housing. You're absolutely right.
Right. So I think the way around what you do is you encourage development where there are houses being built that are affordable in terms of the capacity and the ability to purchase. There are plenty of people making enough money that they can own homes in Hartford. There's a tract of houses that have been built over behind Calvin D. Anderson that have that very thing that I'm talking about in mind. In fact, we had the developer as a guest on our program. Those are homes that people can afford, as opposed to quote unquote what we've come to know as affordable housing, because affordable housing is very subjective. Depending upon what group you're talking about, it could be very affordable. Most of the houses in Hartford are affordable to the people moving up here from Manhattan, all right? But for the people here, they're not houses that they can afford. And so we have to be very intentional in the words that we use because they send mixed messages. Then you have people who are building things like, let's say, I won't pick on the Pennant, but if we were going to pick on somebody, it would be some institution or building like that. And they're going to have set aside a couple of houses for people who are impacted by poverty. The problem is that if it's a HUD house, HUD has bare minimums standards for what they will allow. So you have a facility that has quote unquote affordable housing, but the units don't qualify to be supplemented by HUD. So therefore, they're automatically eliminated. So people come in here, they talk about what they want to do, but then there's no intention to make what the expectation is on the people that are hearing this a reality. Now the thing is built, and then it turns into an oh well. So yes, there needs to be houses that people can afford. Those houses need to be built with intention. They need to be built with an idea that we're going to set these properties aside for individuals who have been impacted historically by poverty. It isn't something that's available to everybody because everybody is not in this place where they need to have this kind of assistance. So there has to be a clear intentionality around crafting legislation that is going to be able to help people get first-time homes in areas where they're comfortable living. Everybody doesn't want to move out to Torrington or out to Barkhamsted or something like that. I want to live right here in Hartford.
House, I would sell it.
Right.
I would not live out in that shit.
Right, at the end of my block is Park Street. All right, on the other end of my block is the Bushnell. So I like my community. I like my neighborhood. I don't want to move out of Hartford to somewhere else. I want to be right here where I am. So there should be opportunities here for the people who are right here in Hartford. And to me, that is why you have representatives in government. to help move those agendas forward and to come up with ways that we can make things happen as opposed to stand in the way of making things happen. There she is. She's back. All right, there's some pretty fancy technology going on there.
Yeah, my laptop died.
That's okay. You guys are pretty quick on that. The switch over would be seamless. The folk, I should stop talking about it because no one knows what's going on. So we just keep it rolling.
Well, I mean,
no. People see it.
We're
We just
very
switch
open
over.
about everything.
Yeah, because we're not perfect. Part of my activism is actually I mess up. Sometimes ghetto as hell. I'm a single mom. My inspiration is Erica Garner. One day Erica Garner would be cussing somebody out. The next day she's out there protesting.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a single mom. She publicly grieved. She never hid any of it.
Mm-hmm.
She was an honest person, and I'm like, you know what? I'm a hot mess. But I'm funny online sometimes, and I'm not afraid to, trip and fall during a protest, live streaming and continue doing what I'm doing, or give Senate testimony because, even if I make a mistake, so what? I was the only parent one time on Senate testimony who had a child with autism, so I could describe the experience. Everyone else was a doctor or a lobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
And that really hit me that, like, wow, I was the only representation, and I could tell you the exact wait list time, something that no one else on the call, including the DSS commissioner, could answer. So, I let people know that I mess up all the time. I'm not perfect. I'm uploading a video tonight of a trip and fall I did because I just kept running to go videotape police. I don't care. I'm not perfect, and I want people to just go ahead and have that confidence to do what they do, because if I'm gonna mess up, I don't care. Neither should you. Just go ahead and do it.
Just keep on trucking.
And everybody's show has a contrast, so here I am, the perfectionist, the performer. I hide my mess all the time.
Hi. He's a DJ.
Yes, I'm a DJ. I'm a musician, but I'm also a product of the Urban League program at Weaver Neighborhood Bridges. Shout out to Don Hancock, Trey Jameson, and all the leaders that was there. DJ London, rest in peace. So many names, so many figures that I was kind of under their wing as a teenager at Weaver. So that's what brings me into this kind of atmosphere where I'm on a podcast talking to politicians while I'm blazing herb.
Oh yeah, that's also because he also went viral. I mean, yeah, go viral, but he went viral because he went with Acorn to Fairfield County. He was the youngest protester there, reading a letter about growing up in Clay Arsenal. And they did end up returning the bailouts back in 2008, but I mean, he shouldn't have had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They should never take that money.
Yeah, and then hearing that I'm on Anderson Cooper's show, like, what? I was just on camera just talking. I'm on Anderson Cooper. I'm on every newspaper in the country, and then two or three more newspapers out of the country. I'm in a book. I'm in a thesis somewhere in Spain at a university.
It's weird.
A 24-year-old kid that grew up in the North End, the firstborn Connecticut baby in my family.
Well, why not you, as they say? Right?
Exactly.
For such a time
Why
as
not?
that. For such a time as that, were you prepared? Absolutely.
Yeah. You find the one intellectual from the environment that I'm from that can articulate where me and my peers grew up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think any of us, me or him, were prepared for this. I mean, people walk up all the time like, oh, I saw you on Senate testimony. I love what you're doing. It's like, yo, I hate what I do because yeah, I might be good at it, but I feel like, solutions are common sense and we shouldn't have to fight our government. So I get kind of resentful sometimes when I keep having to show up to the Capitol. Like, why aren't y'all listening?
Well,
So,
you do. Unfortunately, you do. I wouldn't say. Don't. I would say don't think of it as fighting them. Think of it as keeping them under control. Because if you don't, they will do what they want, and they're not there for that reason. And it is so important that people get involved. You are an inspiration to people who see you go up there. And you already know that when you step into that room, everybody's looking at you. So command their attention, seize the moment, and speak from the heart. And that's how change happens. That's how change happens. Your voice does matter. There are a lot of people who want you to believe that it doesn't. Nothing could be further from the truth. Your voice
what I noticed?
matters.
I noticed that so lobbyists feed lawmakers all day. But the moment that a constituent reaches out to them, I've seen Rob Sampson propose some real good breast cancer legislation because a constituent told him to, and he's a constituent requested bill. And I'm like, and I hate this man's policies. And yeah, he proposed one good bill. Surprisingly enough. So, I mean, they all listen. And I noticed once you're from their district, that's the only time they really care. But yeah, more people do need to get involved, like you said.
If the constituent is at the top of the political food chain, people don't realize that. You are a constituent. It's your government. It literally is your government. That's why I guess maybe that's one reason I'm so fair, I guess, if you could say. Everybody's got biases, and that's just human nature. Food that they like relative to food they don't, or music, the whole nine. But to me, there are a lot of different protected classes. So people are often say, well, how do you feel about this group of people or that group of people, this, that, right? I said, I feel the same about all people. All right? People are people. I said, but when it comes to government, I'm a constituent. I am not a black male. I want to be treated like a black male. I want to be treated like a constituent. When I walk up in this joint, I'm a constituent. I don't want nothing special. Don't set nothing. No. There may be some set asides. I'm not talking against them, but that makes me no longer matter. We have this special cup for you. Why don't you take no, I don't want the special cup. I want access to the water from wherever it came from. I don't want what you got set aside. Oh, these are for Stan. He's a no. Where did you get that water from? That's where I want access to. I want access to the source. I'm a constituent. It's my water. Your entity, I would look in the camera. Your agency manages my water. All right. Y'all stole the water from Barkhamsted and all them people, but now it's Hartford's water. So I'm a Hartford constituent. It's my water. It's not your water. And until people look at it that way, they'll be given the power to someone else to make the decisions. So yeah, when you walk up in there, Rob Sampson knows exactly who you are. You are a constituent. You have the ability to affect his immediate future. Talk about outcomes and talk about impact. Your phone call and a dedicated 10 people can put him out of office. He understands that. Every elected official understands that. That's why when you walk up as a constituent, things change. Lobbyists are paid. They're a dime a dozen. Some of them are better than others. All right? But they're lobbyists. The lobbyists they got money. They know how to move agendas through the system. But you're a constituent. You vote. Don't stand in the line behind the lobbyists. Now, I'm in line behind all these lobbyists that are here being paid by somebody to move an agenda forward. I voted for you. I need to see you. You're my representative. If I can't see you, then I'm going to come back here with 5 more of my representatives, people who actually voted for you. And if we can't see you after that, you won't have to worry about seeing us again, because we're going to start a petition to remove you. And I'm telling you, when that happens, things change. And they don't ever underestimate the one constituent, because it only takes one person. There are people in that building up at the Capitol who won by one vote. One vote.
Just one.
Just one vote. You could be the difference. And every election, no one knows what the outcome's going to be. People would like to tell you what the outcome's going to be, but they don't know. They don't know.
Right now, the roll of the dice, because I haven't seen this much political gossip, and no one knows. Yeah, like, people are tracking donations in an impoverished city where, people might sit there and, say they're going to vote for you, and they might. But they probably don't have any money to donate. So, I mean, they're counting money, and I'm like, I don't think y'all, I don't know.
They don't get it.
Money doesn't win elections. Money wins elections if you're playing the money game.
And a lot of them are.
Right. So what is the money used for? Every dollar is used to garner votes. That's all it's good for, getting votes, which means you either have to spend that money on advertising, television time, newspaper time. All right. If you don't have the capacity to go out and put and knock on doors, because you can't do this retail. No one can. All right. If you spend 5 minutes with a person, substantive quality time, to talk to them about their issue and how you connect to them and their issue in a substantive way, that you're going to convince them to vote for you. They're not going to buy encyclopedias from you in 5 minutes, but they're willing to vote for you in 5 minutes. Now, that's some pretty serious talk. And that means 12 people an hour if you can move like the speed of light between one house and the one down the street. So you figure what? 6 people an hour with real substantive conversation, if you actually meet those people. You can't do this knocking on doors. So now you got to pay army of people. If people don't know you, if you don't have good name recognition, then you have to plant that in people's minds. That's where the money comes in. And they're going to need an awful lot of it. A lot of it. All right? In a time when people are very disenfranchised about their government. And people might give you their ear, but as soon as they close the door, they don't remember that you came by. All right? So then you got to go out 2 and 3 and 4 times. So you're going to mail something out. It costs almost 70. We figured it's like $2.30 to send out a piece of mail, because you got to have it printed. So, yeah, they need money, but they're going to need Luke money. They're going to need $1 million to come up in Hartford and buy favor among the electorate. And that's only if you have the party behind you. So if you don't have the party...
Can we talk about how Luke Bronin forecasted he was going to be mayor of Hartford in his wedding announcement before the man even moved to Connecticut?
He had $1 million. And you put $1 million on the street in Hartford, Donald Duck can win. Even if you put orange hair on him. Okay, so, if you got $1 million. Now, most people in Hartford, most Hartford folk, $1 million is, they can't come out of pocket with $1 million.
Nope.
But if the $1 million man bamboozles the regular people who don't get a voice, the third time around, they're not feeling it. They're not feeling it.
He's walking around neighborhoods. He's on people's porches with his tie loosened. That famous one leg up Tom Hanks stance.
I mean, I'm glad Pedro Segarra lost, first of all, and I will openly say that forever and ever, amen. But I feel like we could have done better than young Mike Peters.
I've never heard him referred to as in that way. That's funny. One thing I will give him,
Is it wrong though?
Young Mike Peters. Well, Mayor Mike was a fireman, and Mayor Mike was a ceremonial mayor, if you will, under the weak mayor system. So, Mayor Bronin was a strong mayor. There's no one can take from him his capacity to campaign.
In military service as well.
Military service, which helped build that discipline. You come back from Iraq or wherever he was in the Middle East, walking up this, North Main Street and Albany Avenue and Cleveland Avenue in the dark is nothing. So, and he walk up on people in the middle of the night. I mean, he's out there by himself, walking around.
No security.
And no security, just regular people. Hey, if you're going to be the mayor here, get to know the people. And you have to give him that. All right. But he was a young 34-year-old. And so if you consider some of the people that are in this race that are older than me, you ain't walking all over the place. It ain't like it was when you was 25. I don't care what anybody, I'm just keeping it 100. All right. So, and he was walking. And he walk up. I've had people tell me story after story after story. Folks is in the back of the house, sitting back there, getting their high on, finding that nice sweet space. And here come Luke, looking like FBI, walking up the driveway. Talk about this dude lucky he get beat down. Said, yo, man, don't let me interrupt you. Name's Luke Brunner. I'm running for mayor. Just want to come back here and shake your hand. And they were stunned. I hear story after story after story of how the mayor did that. But with $1 million on the street and the confidence to go out and do this and not have to worry about anything else and single focused with the help of the party behind you, he won. It's not theory. It's a fact. And he didn't do it just once. He did twice. All right. And he might have been able to do it a third time if he decided he wanted to run again. So now the playing field has been leveled. It's a wide open race. And anyone could win this. Particularly vulnerable are those, I look at the camera for the direct effect. Particularly vulnerable are those whose hubris is going to get in their way and they're going to stumble and trip because they think their money can buy the people of Hartford. To me, that is the height of insult. If you think you can come up in here and run money through Hartford like it's a trailer park. Hartford's better than that. It deserves better than that. And that's why I'm running.
That's fired.
There we go.
I
get mad when people insult my city and my people. My people.
I had to leave some Facebook groups alone because of that.
Yo, can we talk about that $1,000 dinner?
Where do you get your info from?
I'll send you the flyer.
You like some?
It was $1,000. It was $1,000 a fucking plate for the mayoral campaign.
Yeah. Something to drink? Some water?
Yep.
All of that tea.
All right, now guys, we're gonna leave you with that. Make sure that you tune in next week. We're gonna, now make sure to check out Stan's page as well because he does have a show, so make sure to check out Stan's show as well. And we will see you next Wednesday. Thank you so much, Stan, for your time and for your dedication to Hartford. So
before we sign off, I got a couple quick plugs. If you're in the New Haven area Sunday afternoon, myself and DJ Lee Majors will be at East Shore Park jamming together back to back. So come through 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Bring family, bring blankets, coolers. Come hang out and hear some good music in the park.
Yes, and June 2nd, make sure to check out Kamara's Cultural Corner for the Lifted Labyrinth. And DJ Stealth does have a question for you, though.
I ask every guest on the show two important questions.
Because the current mayor does have a SoundCloud, and we have nation's only rap troubadour. So everyone else has a singer statewide. Hartford has the only rapper. So it's very important to know that, because he is so talented. And the last time he went in front of city council, he actually supported everyone talking about housing, and he recited the poem.
All right, 2 questions. Are you a fan of hip hop?
I am. Go on.
And if so, who is your favorite rapper or rap group, hip hop group or hip hop artist?
Well, my 2 favorite hip hop artists. I'm a fan of music. I have a very eclectic, so I listen to all kinds of music. But I would be untruthful if I said, like, I sit and listen to hip hop all the time. But my 2 favorites are, of course, he who said he was the god of hip hop, KRS-One, and Eminem. I'm a big I'm a big Eminem fan. It's hard to get through some of the cussing, but I like Eminem. I like his videos and I like his message. So, in fact, if you want to know I've posted this on my page over the years. I'm not afraid. So if you want to know where my mind is when I run, the words to that song is what I am singing to the rest of the candidates and the machine that thinks I can't win. And so he can say it better than I can, because I can't cuss like that. But those are my sentiments. So when I say Eminem, that's my song right there.
I feel you. And those are excellent answers. And me as a hip hop head, it makes perfect sense. What KRS-One and Eminem, they have many, many differences, but what they do have in common is quick thinking when it comes to wordplay. They both have that even skill of being able to freestyle off the top of the dome, be able to freestyle the song, be able to put together a legato sort of concept that flows within any body of work that they do. And Not Afraid is actually a perfect example, because now we're talking about full focus Eminem. This is post rehab Eminem. He's done with drugs. He's done with alcohol. He goes jogging now. He studio time like a work day, and he drops this monster that hits the pop world in the gut, because they didn't expect something this light from Eminem, but still lyrically dense for the underground hit.
Right, he's back. Not afraid.
And KRS-One continues to make gold and platinum hits without any radio play, without any major promotion, and he's currently being produced by a Connecticut native that goes by the name Sun One. He's from New Haven. Shout out to Template Hip Hop.
There we go. I got to get you on my program with Jonathan Small on a Monday to talk about hip hop, because Jonathan is a big hip hop fan, and so
I'm a music fan too. You might catch me listening to Rakim or Lil Durk one day, then you catch me listening to Norman Brown or Jeff Lober, Miles Davis. You might catch you listening to Third World. You might catch you listening to Todd Terry. So I have a very diverse musical palette, but hip hop, being the generation that I grew up in as a man in his late 30s, culturally speaking, is very, very important to not just Black people, but American culture, and the way the hip hop culture itself and aspects of it has influenced various parts of the world. Like in Japan, they adopted dance first before rapping ever came to shore. So their version of hip hop culture is different from ours, but it wouldn't happen without us in the beginning. And that changed Japan's culture, and it's happening all over the planet. And that's all because of some kids trying not to get in trouble in the South Bronx.
And a true American art form beyond the music. I mean, just the whole culture is yeah. So I mean, I was I realized I was starting to get older when I DJ'd a party, and I was playing Michael Jackson and no one was dancing. I'm like, what's going on? I was like 25, and then all the young kids was listening to hip hop, and I was like, what is this new music they're listening to? And then of course I was at the TV station. Lorna's Corner was on, and she had all of the hip hop stars, and so I started to have an appreciation and get into it a little bit more. But I listen to anything from Sade to Dean Martin to Frank Sinatra to Sammy Davis. I mean, the whole to Eminem. So I love music, and I love Hartford's arts scene. My favorite thing to capture and document are the artists here in Hartford. We have some of the best talent on the planet in this city. Yeah. All right. I'm also a talkaholic in recovery. I'm not doing well. I will be here all night if you let me. So God bless you guys.
Oh, no, we're about to head to Pig's Eye, so I'll see you later.
All righty. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you, and love you guys and love your audience. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye. There we go.
Hey, Hartford, Connecticut, I'm talking to you.
I'm Corrine Blake, resident of Asylum Hill, and if I were the mayor of Hartford, I'd make sure that everyone in the education system knew about the community in which they work, the city in which they work. Because once you know about it, you begin to value the city and you begin to serve in that fashion. I'm really very passionate about education. I'm an early childhood educator, and so I wouldn't be doing any playing around with programming and getting help to the people who work in these areas. It has to be focused, well formatted, and supported. So that's like my biggest thing, because as my mother taught us many years ago in Jamaica, once you have education, that's one thing no man can take away from you. You may lose your money, you may lose your property, but once you are well educated, no one can take that from you. And if you have that, then we can build a viable city. Thank you.
Look at your city, stop, take a